Welcome back to Ringcraft, presented by Forever Blueshirts. I am Jim Cerny, and you know that guy on the other side right there. He's been on your television screen for 40 years. That is the great, legendary Sam Rosen. Sam, thanks for a few minutes today.
Good to be with you, Jim. It's a time that everybody knows it's kind of changing, life-changing time, planning for the future, but excited about the upcoming season. And I as we get closer, the nerves and the edge will grow, and I'll look to get to the rink, and hopefully there'll be people there skating around. I'll be able to talk with them and see how the summer has gone.
That's so awesome to do it yet again. You make your big announcement this week. This is going to be your final season behind the mic with MSG Network, calling Ranger games. And I just wonder, this is a big decision, obviously, and it's your call. Is there a bittersweet feel to this, or is there just a good feel to this that, hey, I'm doing the right thing, it's the right time? Is it kind of mixed emotions?
There are mixed emotions, Jim, because this has been such a huge part of my life for so long. Every year I'd wake up and know I've got Rangers hockey. This is another year for Rangers hockey. Let's go Rangers. How will the Rangers do? You see the fans. That was always in front of me. Now it's coming down toward the end, but the feeling is bittersweet because I know the time has arrived. I think Andy Murray, the tennis pro, said it perfectly for me at Wimbledon when he said, the heart says, I want to do this for the rest of my life. The head says, you can't. So it's a time where I'm on top. I feel very positive. I've gotten great reception from the fans. The last few years have been exciting for the Rangers. They've made the conference final twice in the last 3 seasons. So it's been real good, and you want to go out on top, and I feel that's the way I'm going to leave.
So if the Rangers didn't already have enough pressure on them to win their first cup in now 31 years and, second in 85 years, now they know they have to do it in Sam's final season behind the mic. I mean, the weight of the world.
I think my plan is, Jim, I'm going to go arm in arm with Peter Laviolette into the locker room and give them the win it for the Gipper speech.
But you can only do that once. So you really got to pick your moment.
That's right.
Don't do it in training camp.
Right.
Don't do it in January. Like you wait for that, whenever that game 7 of the playoffs is coming up, that's your moment.
That's right.
And we'll see who can step up and be the Matteau of the moment for you. So you start, if somebody told you, back in the 80s, hey, Sam, you're landing this dream gig and everything. You got it for the next 40 years and all that. Would you, have ever guessed, come on, 4 decades, what are you talking about? And second, would you have guessed, boy, if I'm going to be there that long, I'm going to see a few Rangers Stanley Cup championships. This is going to be great.
Well, I think a couple of things, Jim. One is you never know how long it's going to last. This is a transient business. As you know, people move around. People are always looking to move up, to step up, whether it's with a team, with a league, with a network, whatever it is. People move around in this business a lot. And I have had the good fortune of being here in New York, planted with a team that I grew up watching and cheering for and rooting my heart out for. So tying that into your second question, you just never know. And you know how it is with Ranger fans, and all the years that I went to the booth at Madison Square Garden before we had the transformation of the building. The fans in the blue seats at the start of the season, all they wanted to know is that the Rangers had a chance. Give us a chance. What do you think, Sam? Do we have a chance to go all the way? And most of the time the Rangers were trying. They did everything they could. They brought in future Hall of Famers, stars, young players, older players, and it just didn't happen except for 1994. It is so hard to win the Stanley Cup. It is the most difficult championship to win, and I say that as a true sports fan. When you look at it, you play an 82-game season, and especially in the last several years, only half the teams get in, 16 teams. It's tough to make the playoffs. Yeah. Now you get into the playoffs and you have to win 16 more games out of a possible 28. You're playing almost another third of a season to try and win the Stanley Cup championship. So it's so tough. You go down through the years and you realize how few teams have been able to sustain greatness in our league. It's because the challenge is there. Free agency has come along, players move around, and teams change from year to year. It's tough to win, and at least the Rangers have gotten that one in 94, and they've come close in other years too.
Yeah. And how cool from a personal point of view to know that forever, and I mean forever, your voice is going to be tied to that championship, that moment, which you can argue you actually got to call twice, because, if the linesman doesn't raise his arm and call icing there on Pavel Bure, right? That would have been the first call. Yeah. But then you get to re-rack and do it again off the McTavish faceoff. But that said, just can you even put into words? I mean, that's a big, enormous thing to be associated with forever.
It's an honor. It really is. And how lucky am I and our MSG Network team to have been able to do that last year. Yep. When the cable networks, the regional networks were able to stay with their team right through to the end of the Stanley Cup final. After that, as the networks bought in and got NHL contracts, more exclusivity came along. Yep. And now, you get the first round of the playoffs for the local teams, and that's it. And that's a tough one, because to step back is really hard. You want to be with your team as much as possible. Fortunately for me, I've been able to work some radio games. There were years where I worked for NHL radio with Westwood One, and I was able to do the Stanley Cup finals, playoff games, right through the conference final, the cup final for a dozen years, and that was thrilling in itself. And then you go on here now with the Rangers. I've got a deal where I'm able to fill in for Kenny Albert on the radio side when he's tied up with network playoff games. So as long as the Rangers are alive, I'm in the mix.
Which is awesome. And you mentioned NHL radio, and it pulls me off in a tangent here. In 1993, in the Cup final, Mike Keenan had already been named head coach of the Rangers. He was the analyst for NHL radio during that final, and I was doing, Donnie LaGreca and I were doing the pregame and in between periods and all that for NHL radio then, and doing our talk show from there. And I just remember, talking to Keenan every day, I'm like, it doesn't seem anything like this nut job I've been hearing about for years.
Iron Mike,
Philly
right?
And Chicago, right? I'm like, man, he's just, he's a very thoughtful, soft-spoken guy and everything. Boy, that was put to rest a few months later when training camp and the season started and everything. Yeah. So just, I'm tying in a personal story of my own into asking you about, what was your relationship with him? How did he view, even though technically you're part of the team, you're part of the organization, how much of a barrier did Mike put up, and how was he to deal with during that one season as coach?
I've always said this about Mike. Mike was a guy who wanted to have control. He He was involved in everything, and he wanted total control. And at times, he could charm you as well as anyone. You'd think he was the friendliest, nicest guy in the world. And then there were times where you kind of treaded lightly. What's he angling for? Things would pop up and say, he'd say, gee, I think the players have a problem with you, Sam. And I said, what? And I go around to Mark Messier and Adam Graves and Brian Leach and Mike Richter and Joey Kosar and Nick Kiprios. And I go around the entire locker room. Like, oh, we don't have a problem with you. And basically it was Mike just, keeping an edge, keeping you on edge. But look, let's face it, one thing about Mike, and he was nice enough to text me yesterday and wish me good luck and just say some great things. But we had a good working relationship because Mike, look, great coach. And the only coach to win a Stanley Cup with the New York Rangers in 84 years. He got it done his way. It may have not been the perfect way, but he got it done. And from a working standpoint, if I couldn't get something that I needed from Mike, I go to Mark Messier because he was a guy who was always open and always available. Yes. And there were other players on that team, the players I mentioned before, that were easy to talk to and would give you the right information. They'd let you know what was going on.
Right. So, I get asked this question a lot, and I'm not Sam Rosen, who's been embedded with the team for 40 years. But, I've worked for the team. I've covered the team for more than 30 years. And people always ask, who are the good guys? Who are the guys who are your go-to guys? Who'd you really like? And, they're the obvious ones. There's always, you can't start an answer without Adam Graves' name being mentioned or Henrik Lundqvist or Mike Richter. I mean, just absolute gems. But I always make sure to include guys like Anton Strawman, Michel Petit, Marty Biron, in some cases like Petit, people are like, who, but people are just good people that, I just enjoyed sitting in the locker and just shooting the bull with. So it's a long-winded way of setting up a question to say, obviously there are a bunch of the obvious ones. And you mentioned Mark Messier certainly as a go-to for you, for all of us. But who are some of those special relationships that you built, outside of the broadcast booth, maybe in the locker room or coaches or whatever that stand out to you?
Well, in the early years when I first started, I was real good friends with John Van Beesbrook, and the families got together and we spent a lot of time together. And that was in the 80s. Those I was closer in age to those players than I am now, obviously. So it was easy to get along. We were very friendly. We'd go out together in the off season, spend time together. Don Maloney was a terrific guy to be around. Phil Esposito, who was my first play-by-play partner, starting in 1984. Phil was someone that I spent a lot of time with. Ron Greshner, Ron Duguay, those guys in the 80s, terrific. Then as time moved along, the Swedes came in and they were very, very friendly. Jan Eriksson, Tomas Sandstrom, terrific guys, good to be around. A lot more togetherness at that time. And then you had into the 90s, times changed. Mark Messier came and he was the centrifugal force. He brought everybody together. Yeah. And of course, Adam Graves was there, Brian Leach, great people, great away from the rink, great family people. You get to know their families. at the games and in the off season. Players like that, Mike Richter. I just saw Mike at a hockey in Harlem golf outing the other day, so we're still friendly. I've seen Mike's kids grow up. He's got one at Union College and the other at Yale playing hockey. So it's always great to see them and maintain the relationships like that. And then the current players come along and you get surprised by some. Artemi Panarin, I keep urging him to do interviews on camera. He hates to do interviews on camera. Won't do it. He's always afraid his English won't come out right. He is one of the nicest, friendliest, funniest people you'll meet. He's always got a smile on his face. He's always got a little joke to tell, or a little punchline or something, a little needle. Great, one of those great people that you like to be around. Someone who I didn't know personally is Mike Quick, is Jonathan Quick, who came to the Rangers and became a very integral part of the team that made the run to the conference final last season. Great guy to go to in the locker room. Obviously, a future Hall of Famer. Terrific to talk to. There were years, I want to go back now, backtrack, in the early 90s where I was very friendly with the Russian group. Sergei Zubov, who unfortunately from our standpoint was traded and became a Hall of Famer with the Dallas Stars, but a great player for the Rangers while he was here. I was real friendly with Alex Kovalov because he's friendly with everybody. And, and what a personality. Here's a guy, he just loved life. And he learned how to play the saxophone. I think he learned how to play the guitar. When he went and got golf lessons, he became a 5 handicap.
Yeah.
He
learned how to fly a plane.
He learned how to fly a plane. He loved life. So when Mike Keenan kept him on the ice for 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes, he loved it. Hey, this is great. I'm getting to play hockey. I'm just having a great time. But it was people like that, outgoing personalities. To this day, I'm still friendly with Sergei Nemchinov, more serious-minded person, but really one of those people that when you're friendly with him, he's your friend for life. So it's people like that. I just love, to me, Jim, the greatest part of this game is getting to know these players. They all have great stories. And then the influx of players from Europe, they have stories to get to the National Hockey League. Right. Players come, they're 18 and 19 years old, and they don't speak any English. Think about that. If you had to go to Europe or Asia and work and you don't know the language at all. Just tremendous stories, great people. They come as kids, and some of them grow up in front of your eyes, and it's terrific.
I don't want to tie you up for too much longer. Quick one here. You mentioned Espo, which of course gets to your really, you've worked with other ones as well, but really just 3 main analysts that you've worked with, color guys. And one of the things that I learned absolutely from you and also from Marv Albert, and I tried to carry into when I used to call games for the Islanders, was, man, have fun with it. Have fun with your partner, especially if you guys get along. Let the people at home know that you guys really like each other. And, I had that with Bobby Nystrom and Chris King, doing the Islander games. But you and Marv certainly was great at it as well with his quick wit. But your relationships, it really stood out, especially with JD and with Joe as well. You watch games, I hear you guys talking. Yeah, you know your stuff and you're on top of the games and you know what you're talking about. But it's 2 guys that enjoy being together, which I would think is a key to the success because you spend so much time together. Can you just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, very much. Well, with Espo, Espo, again, gregarious personality, loved to have fun, would not go to the rink in the morning for a morning skate. No, Sam, you do that. And, he didn't, I would say 90% of the time, he didn't know half the players on the ice during the game. Where'd this guy come from, Sam? Where'd they get this guy? But so that was my job. With him, as soon as the puck was dropped, I knew he knew the hows and whys of the game. And he loved to have fun. One time we were in Montreal and there was a delay on the ice. And I said, what do you think we should do, Phil? And he said, let's schmooze. So, we schmoozed until they dropped the puck again. So we had a lot of fun. JD is the gold standard of broadcasters in hockey. He set the standard because he related to everyone at every level. He helped teach the game. I can't tell you how many people would come up to me, Jim, and say, I learned the game of hockey listening to you and JD. And JD was the man. I mean, he knew it, but it related to the fans, related to the players. He spoke to them on their level, related to executives, which he became, related to ownership. He just set the standard. And Joe Micheletti is right out of that mold. Yeah. Joe has his little yellow sheets of paper that he folds up and he scribbles his notes, which you can't decipher. Nobody could read it except him. And he's got all the notes that he needs to relate the game perfectly to the fans. And again, another person, players know him. He's worked in different scenarios, working the sideline, working at ice level, working up in the booth. So the players know him. He knows the game inside out and is able to present it in such a fashion where I don't have to worry about it. I know, if I stop talking, Joe will jump in with something relevant to what's going on because he's seeing the big picture. And that's been the good fortune. And then, of course, I do want to throw in, Jim, a little Dave Maloney that I've worked with on radio. And Dave, he doesn't just bleed, he explodes Ranger Blue. And if the referee makes a bad call, he's pounding on the table. And if a player makes a bad play, go, what is he doing? But no, I've been blessed that way to have great partners at MSG Network. And it's made my job so much easier because you don't have to worry about the guy next to you. He's got it down.
Yeah. And Sam, listen, we've all been blessed. And I don't want to make you feel old, but, I kind of was growing up with you and then had, talk about being blessed. 10 years of traveling and being on the plane and sitting with you and just schmoozing. It's stuff that I'll always carry with me as well. So from a personal level and a professional level, appreciate everything you've done, over, these 4 decades. Looking forward to another great season with you and Joe behind the mic at MSG this year. And let's try and catch up. I have so much more to go over with you, but you are a man I'm pointing at the wrist here. It's off the camera, but I know you have other things to do today. So I'll end with that and just say on behalf of anybody that's watching this, thank you so much. And we look forward to another great season with you.
Jim, it's my pleasure always. All you have to do is say, I want to talk some hockey and we can go on forever.
Awesome stuff. Sam Rosen, the voice of the New York Rangers right through the 24-25 season. Thanks so much, Sam.
Thank you, Jim.